First of all, has Afrobeats overtaken dancehall? Let's just kind of talk about that. How can we think about that? What are the different ways of getting into that and demonstrating that Afrobeats has taken over dancehall?
You seem to be coming from a biased standpoint, bro. The first question I want to ask you, though, is what is Afrobeats? Because are we going all the way back? You know, Fella and all them man there, and before them time, are we going all the way back? What is Afrobeats? You tell me, bro. Because I've heard many Africans arguing about what actually is Afrobeats. So I would like your definition before I start to deal with what you're asking me.
Yeah, it's not. You know what? It's a good question. It is not Afrobeat. That much, I think. You know, we have to be very clear about that. And this is actually one of the issues that I have. Afrobeat, as you know, Fela Kuti, and you know, kind of pioneered that sound, and it was very much something. Actually, he pioneered it, but he very much pioneered it on the back of Ghanaian high life music, which is kind of like jazz influenced music, but also elements of like Cuban music and other African American forms of music. As with all these things, everything, all these genres are just—they're never inventing something brand new. You know, they're always just taking from the elements that are around them and so forth. But anyway, Afrobeat's very political. Fela Kuti, very political, overtly Pan-Africanist, anti-imperialist, and so on, and very anti-establishment, if you like. Very, very critical of the Nigerian government, which is why he kept getting beaten up by the Nigerian government. His wife, his mother got, you know, abused and beaten up by the Nigerian government, the military government in them days. And that was that sound, very, very, as you know, very kind of, very instrumental based. You know, he played the saxophone. He had massive bands, Tony Allen on the drums, you know, and 25-minute songs, you know, and all them things there. So that's the 80s, really. You could say that kind of was the last days of Afrobeat. Now, what happened was that really. So for me, I'm an East African, but here in the UK, I've said this so many times in my videos, the music that Black people were listening to was not from Africa. It was from the African diaspora. It was from Jamaica primarily, but also from the United States. And what started to happen was that I would say the first song I remember that was an African song that was basically like not an old school African song, not a sort of traditional African song, but a current African song with sort of modern, you know, sensibilities and that you could dance to in a club was Premier Gal by Magic System. You'll know it. If you hear the song, you'll know it. It's like got a very distinctive guitar riff. And that was the first one. That's probably like 2000, 1999, 2000 or thereabouts. Was the first one. It was like, oh, okay. This is like young Africans playing, you know, looking like us, dressing kind of like us, and just, you know, doing music that's kind of, oh yeah, this is kind of rapping over it, sort of in their dialect from Ivory Coast they are. That was the first one that was like, oh, this is a club song and a modern African club song. And then toward the end of the late noughties, in particular, that's where basically Nigerian music, you got a lot more Nigerian artists coming through who are playing what you might call club music, modern club music, or you could even call it modern pop music, but with a kind of, you know, club feel, a club vibe. And that's, for me, that's what Afrobeats is. It's the term was coined by, I think, DJ Abranti, like in 2012 or 13, you know, but it basically describes music mainly coming from West Africa, mainly coming from Nigeria, modern, you know, contemporary club music from Africa. That's what I'd call it. But it's the label Afrobeats is it's a marketing label. It's just a label that was come up with by a radio DJ to help to market this product to the world. And I don't know if that's a long explanation, but basically modern club, African club music is how I describe how I look at Afrobeats, mainly from Nigeria, but also Ghana and a few other countries.
Okay. So when I look at what we call Afrobeats now, obviously I've always been aware of African music. I'm not going to say to you I used to go to African clubs and dance and party, because I didn't, you know. However, once again, as much as I cost this country, bro, and you know how much I cost this country. It's cold, it's horrible, rare. The beauty of being in this country is that you go to a club and you can almost guarantee you're gonna hear something of other genres. You're not just gonna be stuck in one genre in a club. And that's, I think, through our clubbing lifetime, that's the experience. Unless, obviously, even if you go to a dancehall night, they're gonna play one or two something else, yeah, whether it be hip hop or whatever.
Yeah.
So when we start talking about Afrobeats, I start thinking of, we can go as modern as the giant himself, or we can be talking about what Tiwa Savage or Tekno or any of them man there, woman and man, and the man and Davido, so on and so forth. The names on the list go on. I think when I first started to really get into Afrobeats, and you mentioned the Branty, because he used to manage this DJ, this singer. Ooh, girl, you don't know the thing. I can't remember the name of the singer.
There's Ghanaian, I can't remember his name. Oh, Atumpan. And
I should remember his name because me and him did a song. So big up Atumpan wherever there. But I remember chatting to a good friend of mine. Probably we're looking at around the 10s. The 10s were just beginning, so 10, 11, 12, that kind of time. And I said to him, and every time I actually see him and speak to him now, big up HDD actually, I always say, remember the time when I told you that Afrobeats was going to take over? And he said to me, no chance. Right? And I said, nah, man, it's going to be the thing. Because at that time, the thing and all them was popping. And then we had...
Small girl, you don't know the thing.
We had Oliver Twist.
Yes. Yep.
Oliver Twist was popping as well as the Chop My Money and all of them other tunes that was around in and around that 20. I think I'm not gonna call it the golden era, but certainly the era that got my attention. Let's say from about 11 to about 14, 2011 to 2014, when all those songs were just popping, one after the other. And at that time, dancehall was still popping, and you had Elephant Man and all of them, man, they're still popping, but you could not go to a rave without playing one or two of these tunes. You know what I mean? You could not. It was impossible. So I think in my response, when I asked the question about Afrobeats, that's what I think about, and then we go all the way right down to where we are now, where we've got Wizkids and all of these guys that are mega stars. And there's one particular brethren that I'm thinking about, and I cannot for my life remember his name. And I've got another brethren that looks like him, and we call him anyway.
Not Burna Boy. You mentioned
Burna Boy. The blow. I got my brethren from Trinidad, right? He looks like Burna Boy. We call him the Burna Boy stuntman. So always teasing him. But Burna Boy, these people are mega stars though, bro. Right?
Yeah.
And
for real.
I think when people start asking the question about Afrobeats taking over dancehall, I always kind of take a step back. Number one, I ask that question, what is Afrobeats to you, in your opinion? And number two, I say, how large is the African continent? Right? And how large is the diaspora? So what do we mean when we talk about taking over? Do we mean more popular, or do we mean more numbers? Because I would not expect a country like Jamaica to have bigger numbers than a continent, bro. You know what I mean? Marcus Garvey, wasn't it Marcus Garvey that said, I would never give up my continent for an island?
Yeah.
So what are we doing here?
To put some numbers on that, Nigeria, the population of Nigeria is probably pushing 200 million people.
Absolutely.
The population of Lagos, just Lagos, the capital, is about 20 million. It's a mega city. The population of Jamaica is what, 3 million?
3 million.
So, that's in a sense.
Bro, we punch above our weight, though. We do punch above our weight.
Yeah. You know what? That's the thing. It's almost like it's almost a ridiculous thing to even be compared. It's like comparing, why would you compare like Manchester City with like your school football team? It's like, what?
I don't know if we're gonna use them kind of analogies there, bro. I don't think we gotta go that far. Like school football team. Yeah, but what you're saying is absolutely true. So when you know, and I've had these conversations several times, and I have these conversations with Jamaicans because I believe that first statement came out, that actual question that we're asking and the subject for today's conversation, I think it was One Extra that made that statement, because they created the Afrobeats chart, didn't they? And it was all of a sudden, yeah, Afrobeats is bigger than dancehall. And the problem that we have, and I don't want to make it all peace and love, the problem that we have is that there always seems to be this little fight. And it's like, no, allow the fight, because everybody's got to get their turn. And in getting your turn, we got to respect the order. You know what I mean? And the order, go on, you look like you want to say something.
Go on, the order. What's the order? Yeah,
we got to respect the order. Now, each one of, so when we look at dancehall, right? Dancehall borrows from Afrobeat a lot. So does soca, borrows from Afrobeat. So if you look at them, man, they did the song Shaku Wine. Shaku's not a, it's not a Jamaican slang.
No.
You know, there's a lot of borrowing that goes, and there's a lot of fusion that happens. And so you can see with even Burna Boy, he borrows, and there's a lot of fusion that happens. Even on Burna's album, he had Serocee. So, you know, there's a lot of crossing, bro. So we can't talk about verses, man, in my opinion.
Absolutely, and that's the thing. Like, that's why this conversation is not titled Afrobeats versus dancehall, because you know what? I'm a Pan-Africanist, and Pan-Africanism is founded upon the basic principle that all Black people, no matter where you are, and don't care where you, and Pan-African, don't matter where you come from, as long as you're a Black man, you're African. Or if you just want to say, you know, as long as you're a Black man, you're a Black man, fine. But like, we are all one people in different districts. If you're Ugandan, that's fine. If you're Kenyan, if you're Somali, if you're Nigerian, if you're Trini, if you're African-American, if you're Jamaican, if you're Brazilian, you know, doesn't matter.
You're African.
Your roots are the same. We're all from the same roots, and like, we've just been dispersed. You know, diaspora means dispersal. And so my thing is what I like about the fact that Afrobeats is so, and someone made this point, Afrobeats is so popular in so many different parts of the Black diaspora. And I love that fact, because there was a time where there was a time in the UK anyway, where, you know, to be African wasn't something that you really shouted from the rooftops, you know. It wasn't something.
So let me interrupt you really quickly. And this is the thing that people don't recognize. There was a time when being Jamaican was laughter in America, in my lifetime. So when I came over,
is it?
Yeah, bro. When I came over and went to school, now here was the mix-up. They would tease me because obviously I spoke differently, but their whole cuss was, "Oh, you're African," and check the madness. When you go to school and that in Jamaica, it's not offensive because as far as we're concerned, that's where we're from, right? As in Africa. So I never realized, I didn't deep that your customer asked me like, you're Viola, right? But not then when they realize, okay, you're Jamaican, you're from this island, and granted their parents and grandparents were Jamaican as well. For the most part. It then got down to look at the clothes you wear and so on and so forth. So there was a point where being Jamaican wasn't the main thing that people went, oh yeah, you're Jamaican, yeah. But I did notice the transition over time. So throughout going to school, I noticed when, you know, the music, dancehall became like the thing. You know, it became more popular. People were, you know, you would certainly moving even coming down to London as well, where you realize that a certain man would talk to you in a certain way and be like, "Oh, fam, you from?" And I think you were one of the man that highlighted it to me, like, "Yo, a lot of these men, they're not Jamaican, you know, bro." And I'd be like, "No." So then I started to get to, "Where you from, bro?" And then it's like, "Oh, shucks." Okay.
I remember you. I heard you do a podcast with I think it was Marvin Sparks, I think, and you were talking about how a lot of like Trinis and Bajans and whatnots. I think you mentioned that someone like a did you mention Foxy Brown? Is she of Jamaican or?
Foxy Brown is Trini. So that's
Trini.
a perfect example. And Little Kim is Trini. So make your point.
And but when it comes to you know, hitting the mic with something other than their normal American twang, they're going to Jamaican. You know, that shows that the sort of, it's like the influence, you know, that Rihanna for that matter.
I find that very interesting because Little Kim, Foxy Brown, and Nicki Minaj, all Trini.
Okay.
And when it comes to the, like you said, when it comes to the point of going into your twang, all I ever hear is Jamaican twang. And I'm always like, but that's not your twang, you know?
Yeah.
And coming from an environment where I am around Trinis, I'm around Bajans, I'm around different islanders, I know that's not what you slip into. I mean, you've been in my environment sometimes, and we're kind of hanging out with Bajans, and I got my Bajan Bajan talking, hey, yo, yeah, and I got my Trini talking, hey, yo, hey, what's going on here, boy? Hey, boy. And, you know, you have everything, and I'm like, yo, what? And we're all throwing it in from different angles, and you know what I mean? It's just mad. And but then to get on a tune and go 100% yard, I'm like,
oh yeah,
what's about? But I'd like to understand that. I'd like to ask that question of one of them and just actually get an answer. And I think what Marvin would have said at the time is that is the, and I say slang, and it's probably the wrong word. I know you're a guy with words, but that's probably the lingo and the slang that people are accustomed to hearing. So it's a massive risk then sounding Trini, although that's changing now.
Also as well, like I think the influence of Jamaica, like we were talking about Jamaica punching above its weight. There's something incredible. There's literally, and I mean incredible. Like it's barely believable the weight and influence of Jamaican culture and Jamaican people, not even just culture, because this goes deep. So we're talking about Ghana. You know, I mentioned Ghana. Ghana, the flag of Ghana has got what in the middle of it? A black star. Why does the flag of Ghana have a black star in the middle of it? And what's that got to do with Jamaica? Well, Kwame Nkrumah, the first prime minister of Jamaica, of Ghana, he said that in all the readings that he ever did when he was, you know, coming up, kind of in the book, and the person who most impressed him and had the biggest influence on him was a Jamaican man called Marcus Mosiah Garvey. And wow. Mosiah Garvey, as we know, had the Black Star liner, you know, setting up this shipping company that would be able to take African people from the diaspora back to Africa. Kwame Nkrumah, Black Star in the middle of the flag of Ghana, is to represent and reflect that ethos and the influence that Marcus Garvey had on him and had on his conception of Pan-Africanism, which is the dominant conception of Pan-Africanism amongst African people in the continent and around the world. Then you've got the fact that many different things, but then you've got the fact that during the 1970s, I quoted from a song by Peter Tosh called African. Don't care where you come from, as long as you're a black man, you're African.
I was going to say Peter Tosh, but I was going to leave you to make the, you know.
Yeah. What you say?
No worry. All right.
So Peter Tosh, Bob Marley, of course, Dennis Brown, Jacob Miller, all these artists and all these songs. That was the soundtrack of the liberation struggles of African people during the 1970s and 1980s. When you know, the Africans in Azania were fighting against apartheid, what was inspiring them? What was motivating them? What was giving them the sort of the language of resistance? It was Jamaicans. It was all of these Rastaman and other artists, as well as you know, the writings, as I said, of your Garveys and so forth, that was inspiring them. And then you've got then sort of at a more mundane level, the fact that I'm from Uganda, and one of the biggest artists in Uganda was also, you know, is a politician now called Bobby Wine. Bobby Wine, there's a guy called Jose Chameleon, and there's another guy called Bebe Cool. These are the big artists, you know, from like the noughties. You hear this, listen to their songs, pure patois. You know,
this is what I was gonna ask you, bro. Sorry, make your point, and
it's deeper than this. It's like, well, I suppose you could say that's Pan-Africanism in action. that's like, we're inspiring each other across the borders, across the oceans. We're inspiring one another in different ways. Jamaicans are inspiring in a particular way. But it's not just the patois, it's not just the singing, it's not just the styling, it's not just the dancehall, the riddims and so forth, but it's also the politics and the consciousness is what I'm saying there. So I think maybe it's a similar thing perhaps for some of these people from other parts of the Caribbean and other parts of the diaspora who are just for whatever it is that you people have, you are African Jamaican cousins have. It's just I don't know. Are you like Levites? Are you like the priestly singers who just have an anointing? I don't know, but it just is what it is.
I mean, it's very interesting that you talk about Bobby White. It's interesting that you mentioned his name, and talk about his music being in patois, because when you think of a man like, let's say, Shatta Wally, 100% like pretty much patois, right?
Yeah,
and he goes over to Jamaica and he gets mad love, as you know. He gets mad love in Jamaica. And it's interesting that you talk about this point that you just raised. It's interesting that you mentioned throughout the 70s, maybe the 60s, 70s, 80s, Jamaican reggae music, even touching onto some dancehall was righteous freedom fighting type music. Which was which was the soundtrack to many revolutions, right? If you think about Bob Marley, everywhere is war, equal rights and justice, so on and so forth. So those guys that you mentioned, Jacob Miller, Peter Tosh, Bob Marley,
the Bob Marley and the Wailers were invited to play at Zimbabwe's independence celebrations, and he had the song Zimbabwe, which when you listen to the song, it's basically like a rallying cry for the Zimbabwean freedom fighters, But anyway, go on. Yes.
No, I find that crazy. But when you take a step back now, and we talk about how did Afrobeats overtake dancehall, is it because, and I have to now be quite objective and really take stock and say, is it because we stopped fighting Babylon? Is it because our music, and not that all of it is, because it's not, you got man like Bugle, you got so many artists out there, Coffee, etc., that are really, saying stuff. And I'm sorry, people, I keep on saying man like, but I mean men and women like.
Yeah.
Is it because our music stopped having the message and the influence that it used to? Because if you think about it, on a whole, the popularity of dancehall music, I think, is dwindling. Some people argue and say, well, because every tune's in patois and not even the whole world can't understand patois. Yeah, that's an argument to a certain extent, because whether you're white, black, Asian, whatever, you could understand what legalize it meant. You could understand what equal rights and justice meant. And you may not necessarily know what wine panic means. Is that the reason? And is then the whole, or the holistic the whole reduction in the popularity of dancehall music then contributing to the popularity of other forms of music? Is that something that we should probably discuss or consider?
Well, I think one thing to say, have Jamaican artists stopped fighting Babylon? They haven't stopped fighting Babylon. It's just that because Chronix is still fighting Babylon. Kabaka Pyramid is fighting Babylon.
Definitely fighting Babylon.
You know what I mean? You could go on and on. Who else? Protege is fighting Babylon. There's like a whole list of them. Janine, Savannah. There's actually a massive number of the and this is anyway. What am I saying? The point is that I think I think. So what we moved on to why dancehall? What's happened to dancehall? What's changed with dancehall? I think the thing that has changed is that whereas in the 90s and shortly after, you could have someone like a Bounty Killer, for example. Bad man Bounty Killer is your dude, he's your, I remember I was more of a Beanie Man yeah, you know, back in the day, because like he used to do like the kind of radio friendly, like you know, Gallus anthem type things, like yeah, woo, you know, and you're like,
it really shows where we were at that time in our lives, man. It's like you look at that, and for me, and I know you got a massive point, but this is why I love our conversations. For me, Killer, yes, he was aggressive, but Killer also had a look into my eyes. He also had poor people governor, poor people fed up. You know what I mean? He had those tunes there where he was fighting Babylon to a certain aspect. Yeah. You know, he was saying, yo, this is not right. These systems need to, I'm tired. Never let your problems get you down. You know what I mean? I have to fight the circumstances that I'm in. Whereas I felt, and Capleton to a certain extent did as well. But I felt, and Sizzler and so on. Yeah. Oh yeah, I heard that Sizzler's a new Bob Marley, mate. Whereas I felt that your Beanies, etc., although they were, you know, amazing artists, like really, really amazing artists, they just didn't have, in my opinion, at that time, didn't have that edge. You know, that made me feel as though, because there's more to life than, you know,
gal this, gal that, and
gal this and gal that.
Every single time. Well, that's the point I was going to make, was that, like, and especially listening back now, I probably didn't appreciate it so much with regard to Bunty, but like, you listen to Poor People Fed Up, that is a conscious song. Like, there's no question about it, because he's not just talking about, you know, burning fire on the government, but he's also talking about Selassie this and you know, Jah that, and you know, he's laying it, playing it. And then a song like Anytime, he's saying, anytime we're hungry again, you're gonna see my 9. He's basically, that's like as he called, you know, the poor people's governor. You know, he's basically saying, he's representing that revolutionary that revolutionary consciousness that, look, it is when man, you know, when man is on his knees, you put man on his knees, then they've got nothing else to lose. And it's like, you take everything else away. The only Martin Luther King said, if you make you know, peaceful protests, if you don't allow people from protesting peacefully or whatever, the only avenue left is violence, you know. But I think what happened, whereas in those days, a lot of the hardcore artists, so-called, would also have that side to them where they're talking about the politics and the this and that, the other. I think I don't know what happened, but maybe from the noughties, that link was broken, and your I'm sorry, but cartels and Movado to an extent, and some of these, especially later on after those guys, if you're talking about Alkaline, and you know, Gage was big for about 2 minutes, and some of these guys coming up, they don't have that. For whatever reason, they're more kind of like, I'm going straight down the road of, you know, I have a super violence. All I'm going to talk about is violence. All I'm going to talk about is X-rated sex talk all the time. And there's no balance even within them, even within their consciousness.
It's like you get those artists that it's just gal and guns, or you're conscious. And, you know, what used to keep the balance, in my opinion, again, I don't want to make this, old man versus young man, but what kept a lot of the balance was you had singers, right? So in the 90s and before the 90s, and also in the early noughties up until the 10s, you had singers. So you'd have a Barry Salmon, you'd have a Sanchez, you'd have these guys that they dealt with the love part of the arena, right? So you had Gallus, love, consciousness, revolutionary, right? You had all of the dimensions covered. The reason why I brought up the singers is nowadays your DJ, you know what we call a DJs are mics, man.
MC, from American DJ means MC in American parlance. A DJ is the MC, you know.
There you go. You have these guys now, they want to be the singer. They want to be the singer, they want to be the DJ, they want to be the everything balanced into one, which, you know, some people do have that kind of caliber of talent. And some people, it doesn't work, you know. And when I look at nowadays, I say nowadays, but, you know, a Bugle, you know, I think he's a very conscious brother. And then, you know, you do look at your proteges and so on, and all the people that you kind of mentioned before. And I wonder to myself, well, I know, and Busy Signal as well. Busy Signal is probably one of the ones that have that balance. They go to countries in Africa and they perform to stadiums.
Yeah.
You know, I saw Busy Signal perform to us. He performed in a couple of stadiums, to be fair.
Yeah.
So there is still that. I think people want to hear real things. You know,
absolutely.
They don't want to hear the shallow stuff, and I think there's way too much of the shallow stuff kind of coming out now, and that's probably why.
Do you think that maybe dancehall, for some reason, in the dancehall artists have got too insular? Like they're too like all the beefing thing in particular. Like there was a point in like just after what's the guy's name? Tommy Lee. Just after Tommy Lee kind of emerged, and there was this whole right. Tommy Lee's going to have to clash Gage, and they're going to have to clash. It was just clash, and like Tommy Lee's talented. You know, I've heard some of his early songs that he did. You know, where he can kind of sing. He's got a singing voice when he puts his mind to it. He can kind of hold a note, but they just got so. Do you think they're too focused on each other? This is one of my things with dancehall is that it's good in one sense. It's good on an authenticity perspective where they're not. It's like they're not. Oh, I'm going to pander to the market. I'm going to pander to the international market. I'm going to get an international radio song. In a sense, that's good because they're keeping it self-driven, if you like. They're in a sense. But the problem with that is that you go and do a concert in Zimbabwe, or you go and do a concert in Germany for that matter. Most people are not going to be wanting to go. Most people aren't going to be wanting to go to a concert in those countries to hear about how you shut up 10 mans and how what I mean. Like people aren't going to be wanting to hear that. They want to hear your catchy numbers. They want to hear your ones that uplift you. They're going to want to hear the ones that that make you happy and make you want to dance, as well, and love and so forth. They're not going to want to hear all this gun talk.
A lot of the music that's made nowadays in dancehall doesn't go past Norman Manley Airport, bro. And I think and when I say this to people, they always argue with me, and obviously I'm coming from the point of view of somebody that I play these tunes around the world. Exactly. And I hear a tune and I'll say, yo, this is a big tune, and I'll go to wherever and I'll play it, and people will be like, what's this? And it makes me realize that we are, insular is the correct word, but we also overestimate the size of the market, of the demographic. Yeah. And that's why people like Chronixx and all the Rastaman them that you mentioned are making an absolute killing. And I'm not talking about financially, I'm talking about going and touring and working. Chronixx is going to be able to work for the rest of his life. Yeah. Yeah. Unless he does something stupid. Yeah. On the basis of what he's done already. Buju, he should be able to tour for the rest of his life. Obviously, he had his little stint in jail. But as much as we love to say, oh yeah, he's amazing and he's the greatest artist ever, do you think Cartel would be able to tour as much as a Buju or a Chronixx would be able to? Let's say he's out of jail.
Yeah, or he hadn't gone into jail. Let's just think. I mean, to be fair, I think he was starting to. So just before the thing happened and the charges get put up, he came up with like "Summertime," for example. Yep. Which was a big song, big crossover potential song. At that time. Love You, was another, good, like you can sing along to it and so forth. He's a craftsman. He can craft a good. I'm not a fan particularly of Cartel, but it's almost like with him, it's like he had those songs where it's like, oh, this is catchy. This is Clark's is another one, That was probably.
There's no denying that he's an amazing artist. What I'm saying to you though is, I think getting to the crux of what I'm getting at is there's some artists that are going to sell out stadiums around the world. They're just, they're a Shaggy. He's going to do stadiums. You may or may not be a fan of Shaggy, but he's going to do stadium type. He's not going to. He's not Jazz Cafe. No disrespect to anybody that plays at Jazz Cafe, right? I think Cartel certainly will be able to do stadiums in certain countries.
Yeah.
but I don't know if necessarily because I still think it's a little bit niche. As much as an amazing artist, and I don't think Cuffy's niche, and I don't think Chronix's is niche, nor Protege, etc., etc. These people, they're cultivating their art, and they are building, but I don't necessarily think they're niche. I think, you know, just like how Katie, who grew up in Hampshire, still listens to Exodus because it's recommended on your top 10 albums to listen to of all time, and iTunes. I think Chronix will end up in. It doesn't necessarily. I think there will be another one of those. I don't necessarily see Cartel popping up on your "You Must Listen to Before You Die" album, and that's me as a fan of Cartel.
Yeah. Well, I think with the Roots guys, the Chronixes and so forth. One of the things, so like, it's funny because for me the demise of dancehall, and just to be clear, why the demise of dancehall? I'm talking about the fact that, as I said in the blurb on this video, since Sean Paul, really, and Sean Paul came at the end of a flurry of dancehall artists who became mainstream. Beanie Man was probably predecessor.
Wayne Wonder, Sean Paul.
Yeah, Sean Paul. Shabba, Shabba Ranks, you can't forget. Mr. Vegas had a head tie. Basically through the 90s, dancehall artists were peppering the charts, and other Jamaican artists as well, not even just dancehall, but like Jamaican artists just generally. If you think about the, Dawn Penn,
Dawn Penn, Serocee. So I think where we're getting at, we had Wayne Wonder, we had Sean Paul. Sean Paul didn't step out of the charts. Yeah, once he hit the charts, he stayed there.
Yeah, he's the biggest.
Elephant Man was in and out all the time. Beanie Man, Serocee had No Games, which was a massive tune.
But No Games, like Serocee, really after about what, like 2003, because I put it in the blurb, the fact that the Diwali Riddim had like bare hits off it, bare hits. There's about 4 or 5, from Get Busy, No Letting Go, Rihanna, Pon De Replay. There's a couple of other ones which I forget, but like since then you've got Serocee No Games was big. Egyptian Hold You was big. Omi Cheerleader was big, but that's that's not even dancehall.
We can't class that.
But that's free.
The Jamaican artist, though, yes.
That's free. Yeah, that's free in approaching 20 years. Whereas in the preceding 10 years, and of course it's not that we judge the quality of dancehall based on whether people in foreign countries buy the music. That's not the point. But I think I think there is a connection between the ability of songs to become mainstream and popular and the content of the songs and the quality of the songs. And I think one of the things I wanted to talk to you about actually was the riddims, the sound set, the soundscape of dancehall. What do you think about the rhythm quality and the place of riddims in dancehall over the last 10, 15 years compared to over the previous 10, 15 years? Because back in the days when I was DJ, when we met and I was like kind of doing a little bit of a DJing thing, I learned about, that's the times. I mean, I knew about riddims when I was, a very young boy, like youngster, 10, 11, 12, 13. And that's why I realized, wait a sec, there's all these songs and they're all got the same beat. Oh, is that how it works then? And then I started to learn, so there's this whole thing called riddims in Jamaica music where you have the same track basically, and countless artists playing on the, and it was a great thing. I remember, I just want to give you this little anecdote. I think it was Don Christie. What was the shop that your cousin?
Don Christie's, yeah.
I remember going into Don Christie's once in Birmingham, and there was a riddim. There's like, I used to go there all the time, innit, and like try, what you got? Because they have all the sevens on the front of the kind of counter, literally. Yeah. And then one day I went in there, and the Showtime Riddim had obviously just come off the planes and was there, and like they were playing it, and I was like, and the guy turned around to me, and was like, okay, cool. So how many of these do you want then? And I was like, no, I don't really like that one. And he kind of he was like,
yeah, as he should.
He's like he just offered me like £200. I said, nah, that's all right, no thanks. And then I went back again, literally probably maybe like 2 weeks later, they had nothing. No sevens, because that must have been like an early batch of them. And the Showtime Riddim, maybe the biggest ever Riddim in dancehall. But I don't really since the Overproof Riddim, 2011 perhaps. And I was trying to follow dancehall again in that sort of early 2010s-ish era. I don't really get that same vibe that riddims are a big thing anymore.
Riddims aren't a big thing. What has happened recently, or most recently, is the biggest tunes so far have been variations of the wine and cut rhythm. You know, the big 808, right? So you'd have another tune that sounds a little bit similar to it, and then, you know, but rhythms aren't really a big thing anymore. I think you're right. Showtime, Punani Riddim, those kind of rhythms are probably the biggest rhythms that you're ever going to hear in dancehall. And dancehall, to a certain extent, there was that. I mean, there's a sixth rhythm. There's Any Place, Any Weather. The Any Weather rhythm, I think was pretty good. But even in Jamaica itself, when you're rolling through the ends, you're not really hearing the rhythms like how you used to, you know. And it's but then again, I'm wondering if that's because things have changed to it's a YouTube environment now, right? With YouTube or streaming or whatever services you use. So
because that's a point, isn't it? Because the juggling, the whole thing with the rhythms is the fact that, you know, they're built for, well, not built for, but like it's a thing that DJs do. So like you get, you know, right, Showtime rhythm, cool. I've got 10 tracks here on this rhythm that I have to play. And the crowd in the dance, because dancehall, you know, it's the name is based on the venue, the forum in which it kind of happens in, and where the energies are, is that whole, you know, okay, then this one, here's a bounty, here's the Beanie Man, here's the whoever, you know, Mr. Vegas, here's the you know,
Mr. Eazi, you know, and another thing is you have to play it in a specific order. You couldn't play things the wrong way around. You could maybe play the beanie before the bunty or the bunty before the beanie, but you couldn't be putting the Mr. You know who, the red rat. You couldn't be playing the red rat before them. You know what I mean? It had to be specific orders. Now we've kind of deviated well away from what we originally started to talk about, but I think a lot for the most part, though, what you're saying and what I'm kind of coming to the conclusion of is that the the revolutionary side of dancehall does still exist and does still have its popularity. The fun part of dancehall is probably not there as much, and we're left with the two spectrums, isn't it? Gallus are gone. I'm a gallus. I got a bag of gal, or I'm shooting my gun and killing everybody. And unfortunately, I don't think the people in 2021 and 2020 and so far and you know, last 4 or 5 years want to go out for a night of Gallus and Gun. They want to hear yeah, whoa, yeah. And I got no problem with that, bro. They want to hear a techno, they want to hear all of these guys, you know what I mean? And I just don't necessarily think dancehall is competing, and it hurts me to say that, because you know how strongly I feel about me and my people. We're all our people, but you know what I'm saying. But I just don't think we're competing on that level. And when I have these conversations with people in music in Jamaica, and they talk about Afrobeats, etc., and I'm trying to explain to them that as sick as a six may be, or a Runkus, or any of these guys that are so lyrical and so amazing, people want to hear, yeah. Nothing wrong with that. You know what I mean? And we've also got to look at and see where music in itself is right now. Music is very catchy. Even if you're, look in the UK. If you're the toughest of tough, big, bad drill rappers, right? Your thing has to have melodies to it. Biggest tune in the UK was sampling Lady Saw. Lady, are you up for this? The one of the biggest drill tunes recently, in recent months.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Now, but it's a nice little sing-along part.
And
for a song, and no matter, they're talking the most grease on that track, but you can sing along to it. And I think what we need in dancehall is more kind of, no matter how bad it is or how wild it is, just give me a Pon De River, Pon De Bank. You know, even if I don't know what the rest of the words are, I just want something to dance to and something to move, instructional, you know, vibes. That's what we talked about. When you spoke about Jamaica influencing a huge portion of the world, it was vibes. And I just don't think we're necessarily giving the vibes that we used to, man. That's just on an honest level. Whereas I am getting that from Afrobeats.
Do you think as well that, like, is there a, because what, so talking about your Chronixes and so forth, just going back to those guys, one thing about them, and I've tracked that, the rise of those guys has been entirely in the internet, YouTube era. You know, these aren't like Cartel when that came before, really, you know, what, 2000s, early 2000s. But like these guys, Chronix and that, we're talking like 2010, 11, maybe onwards. So it's been very easy to track the progress. And one thing I noticed about Chronix initially was, you know, no one knew who Chronix was. I remember he went to Kenya to perform with Kelisa, the artist, the singer called Kelisa. She's not big, but, and he was supporting Kelisa. And I remember hearing an interview with him saying, "Oh yeah, it was a real good experience, learning how to go and tour and so forth." And then Protege kind of took him sort of under his wing as well and started to take him on tour with him to like learn the ropes, learn about how to put on a live show, how to get the crowd hyped, but also how to maintain it for a whole concert rather than just, you know, a few forwards and then jump off again, and getting the crowd to keep singing your, you know, you do the first line and, you know, the crowd has to sing the rest of it and so forth. Chronix then, you know, eventually Chronix was able to say, "Look, I'm not going to any of these like summer jams or whatever in Germany. I'm not going unless I can bring a live band with me."
Yeah.
You know, because he realized, he was like, "Look, no, it's got to be based around a live band." Then he started bringing Kabaka Pyramid in, you know, featuring on each other's tracks and so forth. Eventually Kabaka Pyramid can now tour with a live band and so forth. And it just goes on and on. Jesse Royal, on and on and on and on. What I'm saying is that there's a collectiveness about them and a camaraderie and a working together to synergy. There's a synergy going on. They're constantly working together, constantly in each other's videos. Even Coffee has got a new song, not Coffee, Protege with Coffee, a new song out just yesterday.
Switch.
Yeah, and you look in the video.
Switch up. Yeah.
Yes, I think Jesse Royal's in there. I think Royal Blue's in there. Savannah is in there. Lila Ike is in there. They're working together and they're bringing each other in, and I think they're teaching each other. They're sharing wisdom with each other, and they're teaching each other the ropes. Dancehall, like, one thing I would say about Cartel, I think he was the last big dancehall artist who was actually bringing people through, because it's through Cartel that we got Popcorn, you know.
Yeah, I think
that's not happening.
I think they are still trying to bring new artists like the whole Six crew. They are bringing each other through, but it's almost as though to get big, or if I get on a certain level, I'm big, Ellie's big, right? You two need to clash. No, we don't need to clash. What we need to do is do a song together.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Because what happens is I go to clash Ellie's fans all of a sudden, because remember it's a small island, all of a sudden your fans don't like me. My fans don't like you. And we're now either Team Ellie or Team Sero. Yeah. All the way through the whole diaspora. Yeah. And we're just splitting our audiences. Whereas if I like Chronix but I don't quite like Protege, I'm still gonna go, yeah, let me check out that tune. That new Protege, let me check it out. See, I might like it because my favorite artist likes him. Yeah. You know, and also these guys are real cool as well. Like Protege is a real cool brother in real life. He's like you know what I mean? So why not Savannah? And you'll see when Savannah actually starts to bust and Lila Ike and them boss, you'll see them get through and bring the elders with them.
They're doing it already. So Jazz Elise and Naomi Cohen, like they did what's the rhythm called? There's a rhythm that all of them were on last year. You know, they're bringing each other through, and they're Coffee came big because Coca Tea brought her on to Rebel Salute.
Rebel Salute.
Stage 2 years in a row, I think. Protege and Chronic started taking her on tour. So when Chronic did his Alexander Palace gig a couple of years back, massive gig, great gig, Coffee came on the stage, and like it wasn't like a Coffee at that stage because people didn't really still know, and her mic wasn't working properly, and it was like a bit like. But that's all that experience. Imagine going on tour for like 4 or 5 days with these guys. You're learning, you're constantly bringing, and that's the. You mentioned Cartel. Well, no, when you said the thing about beefing, if Cartel and Mavado, that whole Gaza Gully thing, unfortunately, I think that was a major killer of dancehall's popularity because those are the two biggest artists by a long way at that time. The hottest, anyway, let's say it, a long way at that time. If they'd have joined forces and worked together,
well, they did after, but I
think the damage was done. It was like we'd had like 2, 3, 4 years of like violence and clashing.
I think with those two, I think now if they know, as they're older now, they're grown men. They just got gassed. They just got gassed by the environment, and they made it a Shabba versus Ninja versus Supercat type environment. Everybody wanted that. They wanted the Beanie versus Bunty Killer. But I think the difference between Mavado and Cartel and Bunty and Beanie is Bunty and Beanie had a history. Not a violent history where they hated each other, but a history of competition. Going back to 11, 10 years old, them kind of ages there. They just were always competing with each other. So it was almost playful, although it wasn't, although it was. Whereas with Mavado and Cartel, you felt like it could go very wrong very quickly. Yeah. And out on the streets, it became like it was going very wrong very quickly because people were fighting for that. So there's that massive fraction because it almost looks like when you bring areas into it, which I don't want to get too political on here, but when you start bringing areas into it and you say Goli and you say Gaza, you're really starting to bring back the political fractions of the 70s and you're really starting to bring the drama in. And that's not what they wanted to do. But that started to happen. And once that started to separate the people, then obviously, I wouldn't necessarily say single-handedly they're responsible for the demise of dancehall or anything like that. I would just say it didn't help with the broader audiences. Imagine the last time you checked out dancehall was Wayne Wonder or Egyptian. And then now you're hearing, oh, there's this Goni and Gaza thing, and the guy that's put out this song Summertime that you may like actually is the leader of the gang, the Gaza gang, and because that's how it was being reported on the news, bro. There's Goni and there's Gaza, and if you go down this, and you had flipping what name again from Easterners, Russ Kemp.
Did he do
talking about gangs of Jamaica and mentioning that? You know what I mean? It's like you're not really. We're not helping ourselves here. Yeah. So, again, we are where we are though, bro. And I think it's going to take like a restructuring again from the equivalent of a Bob Marley. So like a Chronics or, I keep saying Chronics or Protege. The Rastas kind of need to come in and save dancehall.
Well, what? I think that is happening. I think that actually is happening. And one thing I'd say, I would give a massive shout out to Popcorn as well, because from being in a position where he was right in the middle of that Gaza Gully, right in the middle of it, like he was Cartel's second hand, second in command or whatever, but over a period of time, even at one point he had like a little mini fake beef with Chronics, which is quite funny because Chronics, Odras, anyway, he had a line in that and Popcorn felt that was like a little diss against him, so he had a diss against him and it was like, what? Why are you two beefing? I don't understand. But anyway, it's from he left Gaza, from when he left that camp when Cartel went to prison. One thing I love about Popcorn is that he has been reaching out to everybody. So he reached out to him and Mavado, did a track together, mended their ways, him and he had a beef with, what's that guy's Black Rhino, is it? Like they had a beef for a while.
Popcorn has beefed with a lot of people. Alkaline, Rhino, so many, and I don't necessarily think it's just Poppy beefing with these people. I think it stems from he at one stage was the most popular dancehall artist, and right now dancehall isn't that massive platform that it used to be. So people feel as though it's necessary to prove that they are better than or bigger than, and then whoever's on the top of the mountain, you're just getting shot at. And that's what happened with Papi. What I like about Papi more so is that he'll collaborate with artists from all around the world. So you've seen him on Drake tunes, you've seen him on Mist and various UK gigs, UK artists as well, and he's just continually doing that and evolving. So
he's. What I was going to say was, the Davido's track, bringing it to the Afrobeats again, but also he did that song with Sizzla and Teflon, and then now, just not that long ago, on Protege. And one thing I do like is that, what's that? Governor, however you pronounce his name. Governor's a sick artist. And he's very, he's done, Coffee's second single after, I think, after Toast. Was Rapture, the remix with Havana, which I love. And so what I'm seeing there, he's also done a track with Jazz Elise on Fresh and Clean, which my children love. We're starting to see that these Roots guys, the conscious ones, aren't just like, we're over here and we're Roots and you lot are just like, slackness. And just one thing they always say as well, they say that, look, we're dancehall. They always see themselves as that we're dancehall. We don't see this reggae dancehall division. We're all the same. And I like that. And I think that hopefully we'll see more of that cross-pollination kind of going on between the two, the two elements, the dancehall and the culture. And we'll start, they'll let them work together and start to, bring up the quality of the mainstream kind of dancehall again. And hopefully,
and that's what we need to see. We need more songs. Look, bro. A lot of my family are staunch Christians, in Jamaica. And in Jamaica, there's a church on every street corner, right? And one of my elder cousins, had a birthday party, just a birthday gathering. And they turned to me, my real name, I'm not going to put it out there. They turned to me and said, real name, you're playing at my party, right? I'm like, cause I've not got no gospel music. What you talking? Playing like what? I can't. And my cousin turned to me and said, first tune I want you to play is Toast by Coffee. I'm like, oh. And that's when I realized that Toast was such a big, in church, Toast is a big tune, And so the point I'm making is I need more of that type of music that our elders can play. Still have the slackness if you want, but just more of that the elders can play, that can travel further than the airport, that can go out there and bridge gaps, So when a Burna Boy or a Davido or whichever new artist wants to come out from the continent, wants to feature, it's not just a bag of, I'm fast talking patois that nobody understands. It's actually stuff that can influence, inspire, motivate, activate people. Because there's so much going wrong in the world, bro. We need more music like that to get us up and get us moving.
And it's not like it's reinventing the wheel. As we keep saying, Jamaica has that history, has a culture, has a legacy all around us right now. Even all them Budjus and Lucianos and whatnot, they're all still there, And that history of upliftment and consciousness and so forth is there. Just reconnect with it. And maybe there's a generational problem there. Maybe for whatever reason, the older generation haven't passed on the baton properly to the younger generation, and maybe it's partly because of the internet. It's too easy for people to become hot without necessarily having to sit at the feet of like producers or sit at the feet of like older artists and like, look, okay, can we get a bring-ins? Can I come and like perform live at your thing? It's like, no, I'll just record a video and look, I got 2 million views.
I mean, it's not like back in the day where you had to go Stone Love Studio or whichever studio and sit down and watch 25 artists go before you and then get your chance. But when you get your one chance, it has to be a hit or else you're gone and you can't come back again. You certainly can just sit down on your phone, make a video, you're hot. What I think the elders didn't do though, no, I'm lying, because Bunty did it and so did Cartel, but there wasn't enough of the taking somebody under your wing, bringing them in, introducing them to the audience and making them do their thing and craft and kind of craft their hone their craft. And I just want to see more and more of that now. I want to see the youngers come through and do that. Unfortunately, the elders may not have done it as much as they should have, in my opinion. But we'll see. We'll certainly see. And for me, I'm here for it all day long, bro. I want the world to experience what we know, and just to bring it back to the whole Afrobeat dancehall thing. I want the world to experience what we do and what we're fortunate enough to do to experience in the UK, where it's not out of place to play an Afrobeats tune, a dancehall tune, a soca tune, and a hip hop tune. You know, obviously, as DJs, mixed well. Yes, but you know, it's not out of place to do so, because that's the way that the whole our whole genre of music, collective genre of music, is gonna get forward, bro. That's the only thing I think.
One thing we didn't talk about was the demographics, and like I think a really big element of, and some people have talked. So look at, I suppose, yeah. Let's go through some of these comments. Some people have pointed out here that the Diaspora. So this Culture 88 says, isn't that a consequence of US-Black relations? Because Jamaican dialect is much bigger in NYC than those other spots. And what's this? This is an important point. I don't rep NYC, by the way. Lot of their died. Okay, so it's kind of like. By the way, I'm not New York, but I'm just saying. But anyway, the point being that the strength of Jamaican music in let's say, you know, certainly in the UK from the 60s, because people probably don't realize that in the 1960s, right early on, after Jamaicans first started coming here, there were some big there were various #1 hits, Jamaican #1 hits and top 10 hits.
My Boy Lollipop.
Israelites, Double Barrel. A lot of these ska and rocksteady songs were going to #1, #2, #6, and so forth.
Long Shot Kick the Bucket, I think, as well.
Probably Long Shot Kick the Bucket. Return to Django is probably big. Rivers of Babylon maybe, but there was a big diaspora here, a market. So you're obviously guys are coming here with their music. And it's like, oh, cool. And then obviously, like, some of the locals hear it. It's like, what? I want this stuff, and that continued to be the case. There was a strong diaspora market here, Jamaican diaspora market here in the UK. But then the big shift in the UK diaspora, Black African diaspora, was from around about the late 90s, when Africans started to become the majority. And I think it's no coincidence that then, following on from that, Afrobeats starts to sort of dominate the airwaves more over and above dancehall, because there's a lot less Jamaicans now than there used to be, and there's a lot more Africans here than there used to be. So it's kind of, and I know it's a
numbers game. It's a numbers game. Yeah. But again, whilst I agree with you, and that's what we kind of touched on at the beginning of the show, when we started speaking about numbers, again, the other side of it, the political side of radio, etc., is that it's very cliquey.
Yeah,
very, very cliquey. So you do have an environment where, if it's a predominantly African producers for shows, then it's predominantly African music that's going to get played on the popular networks. That's something that people don't necessarily accept, but it is the truth. But also, what is the truth is the quality. It just sometimes boils down to the quality. Sometimes it is quite insular, and the quality just does not go over the Caribbean Sea, bro. It's just like that. Okay. And I think we need to be completely honest. I like the comments that Culture said, where he talked about soul, funk, etc. And NYC, that being the predominant slang or lingo that they hear in NYC. Yeah. However, when you are at home and your mom's Trini and your dad's Trini, they don't speak Jamaican patois. So there's no excuse, to be fair.
Actually, what's his name? Fife Dog, rest in peace. But he's another one, isn't he? Like, he used to do his like kind of patois yard thing, and then it's only later. But then he also Trini Gladiator. It's only later on that. Wait a sec. Oh, why are you? But you're Trini, but you're not. But,
it was a proud Trini, but I heard down the line, down the low, down the line, down the lead. Me now look for trouble, but trouble they follow me. It's like, yo, what this brother?
Was it the MC? And then one.
But you know, it is what it is. I just would like to know why. But at the same time, is again going forward. I think because soca is now okay. So you've got dancehall, we've kind of established. Afrobeats have established himself. Now soca's kind of nipping at the heels of island music. You're gonna hear so many more new, what wouldn't necessarily be new to you and I, and you know, people that are on this platform, but new dialects kind of coming through. You're gonna hear the Trini dialect a lot more because people like Bunji Garlin and Michelle, these guys are so proud, and they're really hammering at the door, and they're getting stupid views for their songs, bro, like stupid views. So you're gonna start seeing that coming through. You're gonna hear that Bajan dialect. Rihanna does it a little bit more now. You hear her Bajan kind of creeping out a little bit more. So there's gonna be some artists that you start seeing over the next 5 years, I would say. People like in New York, where you say I'm from the Caribbean, they're not just gonna assume you're Jamaican, you know. They're gonna know that there's bigger, it's a broader, bigger scale than that. Anyway,
do you think that there's we'll start to wrap up in a little bit. Thinking about Afrobeats now, someone made a comment here that they felt that a lot of Afrobeats is a bit westernized and a bit so for example, yes, African millennials said the Wizkid has gone a bit too western, and he said that doesn't like Afrobeats for that reason. For what reason? Likes pure western, pure non-westernized. Do you think one of my things with Afrobeats is that, and then there's a comment here as well that a lot of auto-tune. There's a lot of auto-tune in some of these Afrobeats. Do you think that there's, well, I think, let me tell you what, this is what I think. I think there's a bit of an agenda with the way that the major labels have jumped on a bunch of these people like your Davidos and, you know, Wizkids and so forth, and how some of the, you know, the artists even as well, like your Beyonce's and stuff, will just jump in on some of these guys, even though...
Oh, we didn't even start to talk about the Beyonce album. But anyway, carry on.
Yeah, by the way, my son loves brown skinned girl. He loves that, and I love that he loves it because, you know, on just the surface level, that's a good song for a young child, a young black boy to be singing. But bringing it back to Afrobeat and how political Afrobeat is, and there are Afrobeat artists now who are still putting out that conscious music. Seun Kuti being another one. And I was watching a video by that Shakara did on Afrobeats versus Dancehall. Recommend people to watch that afterwards. But he reminded me of the quote, the thing that Seun Kuti said, which is that something like there's these Nigerians with like a bunch of blood money, you know, oil money, blood money, running around across the world, spending bare money to get their music played, and that music. One of the things with Afrobeats, on the whole, largely apolitical. It is all, largely materialistic, largely, like I said, just devoid of any spiritual content, even devoid of any, like, you wouldn't be able to look at those lyrics, a lot of them, and read the lyrics and say, okay, yeah, this guy's coming from like a proper sort of, cultural African perspective. It's just quite westernized. I do think a lot of Afrobeats is westernized in the sense of empty, politically empty. And I think perhaps there's a dynamic going on here where some of these labels are realizing the rising of Africa, generally speaking, and particularly the amount of, Africans overseas in America and the UK, and they're basically co-opting. They're looking to co-opt them and divert them away from a conscious path and divert them toward more of a westernized kind of materialistic stance. So I would love to see more political content in some of this Afrobeat, so-called, but I don't know what you think about that.
Well, I think there's certainly an agenda. We look, at the end of the day, bro, you can fool me once, you can't fool me twice, innit? And you can fool some of our people some of the time, but you cannot fool all of our people all of the time. So now you see the light, you have to stand up for your right. Now, the reason why I've just gone through that whole quote is this. we've seen it in our lifetime, right? We've seen it with black genres of music, right? And I know people might want to jump up and down and say, "Oh, it's not black." I don't care. What I'm saying is what I'm saying. I said what I said. Damn it. We think with hip hop, right? When hip hop was political, slowly but surely they showed the hip hop artists that the money was not with being political. And when you come from the hood, you come from the ends, you're gonna go where the money's at. And the money, and it still was in gangster rap and bitches and this and da. We saw it, right? Even to this day, today, where you'll see a J. Cole, he'll do his thing. But he's not as mainstream as a Drake. Behind the scenes, though, their numbers probably ain't that different. But on radio play, etc., it's not the same. Right. We're in an environment now, though, like you said, where it's streaming. Okay? Where people are gonna like what people like. So we almost have to we almost have to make sure that those the levels are there. Sorry, I'm going a broad way about trying to explain a small thing. So for every love and soulless, as you put it, song that's out there, that there's an equal and opposite. There's a song at the end of the spectrum which is quite political and so on, and we just got to make sure that people know that it's all there. We just got to make sure that the Afrobeats is producing this type of music as well, so that people can have a broad selection of things to listen to. Because if it's not in the pot, you don't stand a chance of getting listened to. But if it is in the pot, then obviously there's an opportunity for it to be listened to. I said all of that to say this: there's always going to be a political and commercial agenda, and it's never going to be with the upliftment of our people, bro.
And this is one of what we need to do. Is so for one. I mean, to be fair, I said all that about Afrobeats, but I would, Wizkid stepped up when it came to the SARS, no SARS thing.
Yeah, he did.
A lot of these artists stepped up, and similarly in Uganda as well. So Uganda, we're just small fry in this whole continental music world. But when Bobby Wine was first arrested a year and a half ago or so, all of the artists, nearly all of them, Eddie Kenzo's a big artist, Chameleon, a bunch of these artists came out and attacked the government, saying this is, you know what I mean? Like, so, and that's in Uganda. That's a good way to get yourself killed, to attack the government. So to be fair, there is that there. But I suppose my last question, one of my last points would be how can we loosen our dependence on mainstream corporations to shape what we listen to shape, our musical agenda, because if the mainstream wasn't pushing Wizkid, he wouldn't, or Davido probably is more, the mainstream is pushing, these major labels have signed them up and they promote them heavily, put them all on the radio stations, this, that, and the other. And so whether we like it or not, that ends up being who we like, because that's what we're confronted with. But how can we break that stranglehold that they have on us? Is there, and particularly as an artist yourself, is there a way that the artists can maintain that kind of like organic link with their audience and have that independence to be able to still do what they're doing authentically, but also still make a living and get some level of promotion as well? What can we do? What can we do, fam? What can we do?
Let's take a quick step back. David Banner, American hip hop artist, right? He was eating before labels approached him, right? He was eating, and I think the confidence the reason why I bring him up was because he did a lot of it independently. He made a lot of moves independently. Even Talib Kweli, Mos Def, all of these people, they were approached by labels and made certain deals later on in life, but they were making moves independently. Even Drake, not the Drake that we know now, but the Drake that first got on the scene was independent, J. Cole and so on and so forth. So it can be done independently. It depends though. When you get that big bag of, hey guys, sign this document, and instead of just being big in Uganda or Nigeria or Ghana, etc., you're going to be global. But for that, you have to relinquish a little bit of control. And they may not even say that to you. They may just say, yeah, sign this, man. We love what you do. But then you come to them with the album, right? And when you go to them with the album, they go, don't really like, I like this one. Can we have 12 more of these? Or can we have 12
right.
of what Burna Boy is doing right now? We need that direction. Or else we can't put an album out. Now, all I want to do is be creative, bro. So then I fall into that whole pit of, oh, well, I'm going to have to do music that's sounding like what's popping right now. Or if you get a massive advance, remember, an advance is only a loan. Yeah. So you get a massive advance, $1 million, let's call it $1 million or more, and you must produce an album. What's gonna be popping right now? Oh, well, on the album, I'm gonna have to have certain features. I can't have MC Jomo because nobody knows who he is, and so therefore I'm not gonna get the money back for that. So I need to go for this popular artist, so on and so forth, and it continues in that respect. So in answer to your question, I think there needs to be more faith placed in being independent and understanding that with the streaming sites, etc., right now, you can blow. You know, you can, like Lizzo when them popped without any kind of backing first.
Who?
Lizzo.
Okay.
Singers. But a lot of people pop without any kind of backing first because they're popping from TikTok, bro. Think about that. A man's got a song on TikTok and people are doing little dances to it, little challenges. They get on my nerves, the little challenges and the this and the that, but that's how songs are popping now. You just need some intelligence, a little bit of smartness, and just go. I would say go the independent route, because labels, once again, they are never going to back the message that actually encourages the independence of our people. Anyway, it just doesn't seem like it's gonna happen, and you don't hear other genres kind of barling for money from major labels. You know, why are we?
And I suppose another thing to a point you're making in that as well is that, you know, we talk about artists like the Bugles and Agent Sasko would be another one.
Lovely artists.
You know, great artists, never blowing up. And every time these guys, you know, Deep Jahi as well, Deep Jahi, however you pronounce his name.
Deep Jai. Deep Jai is a mad artist, bro.
Like, for a long time as well. What's the guy? Lose the World. Who's the guy? Jamil as well. For a long time, he was in this category of like, every time they put a video out, it's like, oh, this guy's so underrated. He never blows up. But I suppose there's also in that you're saying, you know, trust the independent route as well, but also don't always be seeing it as like you know, the aim has to be to blow up. You know, like you can,
Okay. So for us. Maybe that's just first world problems, though, isn't it? For us sitting here in, I would assume, a well-heated room with TV and lights and cameras and all the rest of it, we're okay. If you're a youth man with no money and you're living in a shack, but you got a talent, and a man offers you all the money in the world and you can look after your family and so on, just like how the footballers are in Brazil. You can look after your family, but you just got to do this, you're going to do it. And it's difficult for me to tell you not to. So when I say have faith, I mean, sometimes you have to just satisfy with the fact that I can go anywhere in the world and play to 1,000 people. Right? Not me personally, you know, but like if you're Agent Sasko, you can probably get 1,000 to 2,000 people in a venue. Right? Anywhere in the world. And if you're talking about 1,000 to 2,000 people spending 20, maybe 30 quid to come and see you, that's not bad. That's not a bad living, bro. Obviously, you got to pay tax and all the rest of it. I'm going to get to my point, though. We shouldn't necessarily, we might want more, but understand that it's about the journey sometimes. It's about here's my career, and I can go on like Toots and the Maytals and them and forever be touring. And I might get a number one every now and again, and I might get a tune that charts every now and again, but continue in that respect. And if artists can recognize that and know that they're in this thing, because, you know, music again right now, it's so disposable as well though, bro. You make a tune today and tomorrow they're asking for a new tune. So I get it. But let me get to my point. My point is this: have faith in the system, have faith in what you do, and believe that the end goal isn't always that pot of gold. Sometimes the end goal is being able to do what you do forever.
You know what's funny? It's funny. I've had this conversation with a couple of guys on this stream. Oh, you were in the comments here, by the way. And we'll go. You're right for about another 10 minutes or so. Yep. And MIA Jammer, as an example of one who I've had this conversation with. That it's there's like parallels between, you know, the artist thing and a content creator perspective. You know, so it's a similar thing. It's like, okay, like you're talking about that, you know, the what's the word? The motivation, the thing that pulls you to, oh, okay, I've got to put out what people want. I've got to put out what, you know, is going to get the biggest amount of views. I've got to do this. I've got to do that. And it's a funny thing. It's like I'm reflecting as you were talking. I was kind of reflecting on like, yeah, you know what? This is interesting because actually, you know, that applies to us as well. You know, it applies to us content creators to just not be chasing I want to have the viral video, you know, and like constantly and being kind of authentic about it. But you're right as well. But by the same token, you know, there are people who really, really, really need the money. There's people who really, really are desperate and aren't, like you say, sitting here in that comfortable middle class life kind of. Now, some comments here that I just want to definitely get to on the question of how to, you know, relinquish the mainstream's grip on us. So MIA Jammer says, creating our own platforms, figuring out our own tour interconnectedness. We're always going to be co-opted if we go down the mainstream route. Yeah, absolutely. And then Culture 88 says collective organization.
Yeah, I think everybody's kind of touching on that's why I created this. And that's part of what I said to you at the beginning, at the top of the program, when I said we've got different figureheads in different parts of the world, that my ambition has always been, I don't care where I land in the world, a show can be put on and we can perform and we can work. I don't necessarily care if my Spotify streams say I've had 1 million streams this year. I would like that. I'm not going to lie. But there is something more with that word interconnectivity. There's something more with that. You talk about content creators right about now. The world the world's stuck at home, bro.
Yeah.
The world's stuck at home. Do nothing. Do your tunes. Put your tunes out and figure out a way of getting to the people that want to listen to what you have to say. So, for instance, with you, with what you were talking about with your content, you know, there's I don't know how many over 18 there are in the world, but I would hazard a guess at, you know, let's say 4 billion, right? 5 billion over 18s. The number's probably different, so people, please don't shoot me down. But there's got to be, and of those billions, imagine 1 million checked for you what you had to say, bro. Imagine 1 million cared about what you had to say. Does it matter that your videos ain't going viral? And when I look at a lot of these people that I follow on YouTube, etc., I follow them because what they say relates to me. You know what I mean? I have an affinity with what they're saying, what they're doing. Same thing with musicians. Just keep on putting out your music and make sure that you put 1 or 2 hashtags in and whatever. But unfortunately, now we live in an environment where if you're a musician, you got to be putting out music regular, bang, 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 bang. You can't just rest on your laurels anymore. And hopefully, you know, it may not happen for you. And if it doesn't happen for you, so it go. You have to live with that and take that. And is there anything more that you could have done? No. You know, and I know that sounds a bit. Yeah. We don't want to end the story on a bad point, but the point I'm making is do what makes you happy. Do the right thing. Don't sell your soul. Hope that the best happens, and if it doesn't happen, it's okay, because you can still go to sleep at night knowing that your conscience is clear and you never sold out nobody to get nowhere.
Yeah. Oh man.
So if I see AfricansArise next week doing booty videos, we'll be having words.
Oh man! Oh, I've got some deleting to do then.
I got some editing to do right now, dog.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. That's good. No, that's really powerful. And you know what? Oh look, here's a the world is anti-black, so don't stress over the Joneses.
That's it. That's been my opinion, bro. You know, again, veering off slightly, one of the reasons why, and and it's not me trying to just advertise what I do, but one of the reasons why we came up with this is because I was going to clubs and approaching clubs, and I was saying to clubs, look, I have this concept. Yeah, we're bringing Notting Hill Carnival to the different clubs across the UK, right? And the minute it became apparent that I was black, it was a problem. It was a problem in various cities across the UK. I'm not saying in every single one of them, you know, every single one of the clubs, but it was a problem. It was we don't know. It's not normally, yeah, but you know, that type of music we don't really play that kind of music. And I just been like, hold on a minute. And I'm not going to mention any names, but there are white crews that do this. And they don't get the same argument. I know they don't get the same argument because when I talk to the people that run those crews and I say, yo, where are you playing in Glasgow or where are you playing in Liverpool? And they say to me, I'm playing at such and such. And I say, who do I need to talk to? And they tell me the name.
And it's the guy you talk to. Yeah.
That exactly. And I'm talking to them and they're like, oh, well, mate, we don't really put on those kind of nights. I'm like, rock up. It's okay for them, people that are not necessarily from my culture, to sell my culture, but me, I can't present my culture to the place. And so therefore, from that point forward, I started to say, all right, then cool, you know what, let me use my brain. Let me come to them with money and let me rent your club. How much does it cost to rent your club? Oh, it costs such and such. Here's your grand. Just tell me, does that pay for the security? Yes, it does. Pay for the this, pay for the that. Yep, okay. I'll put on the night. I'll control the door and I'll control the bar. Then when we start having them kind of conversations, now it's like, but we normally take the money from the bar. I rented your whole place, like, you know. So we started to get. I don't want to get into too much, but we had to pull a Dame Dash move on them. A lot of these places, bro, and control the full narrative. Because we're not going to get any handouts. We never are. So is it anti-black? Is the world anti-black? I don't know if I'd necessarily say the world is anti-black, but they certainly ain't going to give us no handouts. It's certainly not going to be forthcoming with helping us to build our platforms. So we just got to do it ourselves.
Asheo. All right, then. You know what? I think that's a good point, a good time there to call it quits. And I think that's maybe a conversation for a future stream, actually. Something around, like, you know, I don't know, how can black people kind of control our destiny in the entertainment industry or the music industry or something on those lines. So we'll maybe hash something out on that for at some point in the future.
Well, bro, you know, at this point now, you may as well just make me a monthly guest, man, and just done. Because
well, you know what? Funnily enough, I've been doing weekly streams. Well, there's still people here. I've been doing weekly streams up till now, but I'm gonna start to do them slightly less frequently, maybe like possibly monthly or every fortnightly. I'll see how it goes. Because what I want to try and do, and this is the reflection that I was talking about earlier. That's one of the reflections there, is to say, look, I've been trying, you know, doing them weekly and enjoying them. They've all been really enjoyable and so forth. But actually, it's, you know, I don't know if you can hear that my youngest there crying. Yeah. You know, there's not that much time to do, you know, to do kind of things, as well as reading and, you know, just understanding the topics that I'm trying to kind of get into and so forth. So what I want to do is kind of reduce the frequency somewhat, but make sure that the quality of the streams are top, you know, so giving me the time to read up, giving me the time to prepare the topics and the subject matter, and so on. And just giving me time as well on my, you know, in my own time to kind of develop myself and make sure that I'm not just a content creation factory, but I'm also, do you know what I mean? Like,
I mean, what most platforms or most people would tell you is that you need to keep on steady churning out content. to be honest, I to somewhat do it. I don't know. Depends if it works for you, bro. And also you got to just be aware of where your place is and what your audience want. If your audience wants something that's weekly, then give them it weekly if you can. If they want something, you know, if every other week can work, then so be it. Because if people are subscribing, knowing that they're gonna get some good quality, then you know, deal with that. But right at the moment, you're dealing with topical things, you know. So I would say to you, man, do whatever feels natural to you, and the audience will certainly accept and acknowledge and be happy with that. For me, certainly happy to come and talk again, bro, as and when. Let's do it, man.
Yeah, man. Good. And I just want to trail next week's stream actually while we're here. So thank you, Mind Over Matter, by the way. Mind Over Matter is a sister who kind of encouraged me to start doing lives actually, and she's given me some good bits of advice, you know, here and there over the last few months. So so thank you for your input. Next week's live stream is going to be about the Bible, but don't look out yet. Wait. It's the title is Pan-Africanism and the Black Biblical Destiny. I've got a sister called Only Love Chika Alston, who's a Hebrew Israelite sister based in the United States, and she's written a book which I should have brought with me called Prophetic Whirlwind, and she's got a ministry called the Prophetic Whirlwind. And basically, we're going to be talking about. She's a Hebrew Israelite, you know. She holds that the Hebrews, the Israelites, were black, and that a bunch of black people today, both in the diaspora but also in the continent itself, are descendants of the ancient Israelites. And so we're going to be talking a little bit about that, and also not more importantly, but like focusing on how that is relevant to Pan-Africanism and how that's relevant to organizing and how that's relevant to some of the everyday actual issues that we have as black people in the world today. So so yeah, that's going to be a good topic there. And then so make sure you come along to that. You know, if you're free, then you know, log in and check it out. And then how about you? Just before we look out, then how about what's any content that you want to be promoting or because you stream? You said something on your thing the other day about you had 100,000 streams or something last year.
Yeah. We put out a tune.
Some terrifying figures there. You muted yourself.
Right. So sorry, bro. We had a song. Well, I put out a Christmas song, 5th of December, and to date we've had 100,000 streams on that, which is cool. You can always see me on Spotify. My name's spelled there. Just check out the Spotify, you'll find me. For me, as far as content is concerned, what I try to do more, what I try to do most as far as content is concerned is, I try to do workout videos and workout bits and pieces. That's the main thing that I'm kind of running with now. We are going to do a few streams for Rum and Bass, like our event-based streams. But if I am being completely honest, bro, I think the world is so full of rave type streams now, where I'm just like, where do we fit in? Like, do I want to do a social distance rave? Nah, it has to be quite topical and it has to make a bit of sense to me, rather than just doing a live for the sake of doing a live. We're probably gonna do something in respect for Trinidad Carnival, and probably gonna do something topical across the lines as far as carnivals are concerned. But yeah, that'll probably be about it until we're all out and can party together and hold each other in our arms and hug each other, and you know what I mean?
Yeah, I look forward to that day.
I just think I'm kind of in the same boat. We're all in the same boat, and I want to be in the same boat. I don't want to. Yeah. Anyway, it's a bit long, but yeah. So check me out on Serocee or at ICUC Fitness. Those are the main things that we're running with at the moment. And once a week we do a stream as well called Intelligent Fools with myself and Young Lion. I think we're gonna make it Clubhouse as well, where we talk about topical stuff. You know, anything that's happened during the week. And I was doing it last year and I stopped doing it when COVID kind of kicked in because COVID just took over the news. I was doing a thing called Sunday 16s, which I just freestyle about just basically everything that's happened in the week.
Okay.
I'm bringing that back. I'm changing it though. I'm going to call it Sunday Service, Sunday Sermon actually. And yeah, so the first one's going to be the first week of February, first Sunday in February. So whatever's happening that week, I'll literally just put on a beat and freestyle. So yeah, look out for that. Every Sunday it's going to hit your IG. Yeah, wicked. So yeah, check out Serocee on Instagram. Very prolific on there. On Facebook as well. Some very funny stories on Facebook. But yeah, good. Yeah, I'll be waiting patiently for all of them new endeavors and innovations. My brother, it's been an absolute pleasure and honor as usual having you on here, and we've got into a lot of topics. Thank you everybody for all of the comments, everyone who's been on the live stream. Big respect to all of you guys. And yeah, on that note, I'm gonna head downstairs and deal with this pick-me. My brother, big up, sir. Peace out. I'll let you go. Bro. Yes, and everyone in the audience as well. Peace out. See you next week. Next week, Wednesday, for the live stream with Prophetic Whirlwind. All right. Peace. Big up.